Good morning. This is Chelsea at the Elks National Foundation, and I handle and read the gratitude grants. And I'm here today to do a webinar on how to get your gratitude grant. Before we get started, I want to go over a few troubleshooting issues just in case you encounter some of them. So if you can't hear me, make sure to turn up the volume on your speakers or on your computer. If at any point you get disconnected, click on the email link again and you can re-enter the meeting. Also, if you have any issues connecting, please call ENF at 773-755-4730 and someone will assist you. I also want to note that if you know someone who couldn't attend this recording, it will also be posted online on the ENF's YouTube page today. So the link is right below and it's on YouTube at the ENF's selective page. Here's a quick overview of some of the grants that the Community Investment Program offers. So we have impact grants. These are our largest grants, and they range between $2,500 to $10,000. All lodges are welcome to apply, and they are competitive, and there's a competitive selection process. I'm going to skip over our gratitude grants and let's drop down to beacon grants. Those are $2,000. They're available to every lodge, regardless of whether the lodge has met per capita, and they must be used for ongoing Elks-led community projects. We also have promise grants, which are competitive as well. They are $2,500. They're available to the first 500 lodges that pledge to host a youth-themed event. For anyone who intends to apply for a promise grant, I highly encourage you to apply as soon as it opens because we only have 500 of those. The promise grant opens on July 1st. The Beacon grant also reopens again on July 1st. And lastly, for the gratitude grant, which we will discuss in further detail today, ranges from $2,000 to $2,500 depending on additional criteria that we will review this morning. And the gratitude grant deadline is May 31st. The requirements for this is that it must be a charitable community activity. So, membership decline has continued to be a problem for many fraternal organizations, including the Elks. So, when the board created this program, they created it with the intent of increasing the Elks' presence in the community and, more importantly, increasing membership to continue the legacy of the Elks. The SIP program, or as some people like to use the long name, Community Investment Program, is a relatively new program as far as the Elks and the ENF history goes. We recently celebrated our 10th anniversary last year, and we're very excited about what's to come in the following years. And this year, the Elks will invest $9.77 million in communities through ENF Lodge grants. With that being said, the ENF doesn't invest the amount of money to fund projects that the lodge has been holding for 20 to 30 years. The SIP is intended to usher in a new era of increased charitable outreach. So please keep this in mind that grants are not intended to fund projects that the lodges have been holding for many years before the SIP existed. This leads me to discuss some of the restrictions that have been put in place that prevents lodges from organizing projects that the lodge has held in the past. So we'll go over those restrictions. But before then, I just want you to know that for any of our grants, they must be charitable in nature and are geared toward helping people in need. And secondly, they must be used to meet a local community need. By local, we mean within your community. We do recognize that some lodges are in rural areas, and we do account for that. So some of the restrictions that are in place are that lodges cannot use SIP grants for scholarships, state major projects, general community events, hoop shoot or soccer shoot contests, youth award nights, poster or essay contests, fundraisers, appreciation dinners, lodge maintenance or repairs, to give to the Elks or their families, or donations directly to individuals. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the ENF wants to move away from programs already in place at the national and local level. Hence is why things such as the hoop shoot, the youth awards nights are listed. Additionally, we are also restricted by IRS guidelines, such as donations to individuals or giving directly to the Elks and their families. So please keep this in mind when you are considering a project. And as I said before, local means in your local community. And good intentions is not enough. You need to be practical, considerate, and well informed, and you plan your grant project around what you hope to accomplish. So here are a few per capita concerns that I want to go over before we really dig deep into the gratitude grant process. So, for every lodge in which more than 15% of its members donated to the ENF in the 2014-15 year will be eligible for a bonus of $500 for this 2015-16 gratitude grant. So, earlier I mentioned that gratitude grants range from $2,000 to $2,500. That is due to lodges that are eligible for that $500 grant, and that gives them a total of $2,500. Also, I just want to highlight a picture that is to our right of Jacksonville, Florida Lodge number 221. They formed a partnership supporting a homeless center for veterans, and they were renovating closet space for the individuals living there. This was for veterans, homeless veterans transitioning into housing. So if you're looking for ideas, gratitude grant projects can run the gamut. This is just one of the examples of it. So let's go over what exactly is considered charitable. So the primary goal of ENF grants is to help people in need in the community. Following that, here are some guidelines to consider when planning projects and coming up with ideas. Note that these are not just categories we made up. These are the categories that the IRS deems as charitable, and as a 501c3 organization, the ENF is required to follow them. Note that these categories are very broad, so they shouldn't be restrictive, but still it's good to keep them in mind when thinking about grant use. So the restrictions, I wouldn't say restrictions, but these are the guidelines that the IRS has set up in which they consider our charitable purposes. So relieving the poor, distressed, or underprivileged, advancing education or science, but not through scholarships, lessen the burdens of government, lessen neighborhood tensions, eliminate prejudice and discrimination, and combat juvenile delinquency. We also like to have lodges think about using gratitude grants for new projects if possible. The SIP has grown a lot since it began with the intention of helping Elks expand their charitable activities. So if you see a need in a community that you haven't addressed before, consider using it as a project. So the 2015-16 gratitude grants are due May 31st, 2016 at 11:59 p.m. Central Time, which is the time that the ENF is located in, since we are in Chicago. So please have them in by 11:59 p.m. If they are not in by that time, the system locks you out and you will not be able to apply. Unfortunately, we don't have any exceptions for that. So please, if you really want to apply for a gratitude grant, I want every lodge that's eligible to have that opportunity to apply. You all have worked hard to raise funds for the ENF, and this is our way of saying thank you to you. So please get them in time. Secretaries have automatic access through CLMS. So looking at the screenshot to the right, you can see that an ENF hotline is to your right. So if you are unsure of whether the lodge has met per capita and is eligible for a gratitude grant, this information can be found in this area. Also, grant coordinators must be appointed online by the secretary with the exalted ruler's permission. and access is granted through grant web pages. So let's go over a few of the basics about the gratitude grant. So $2,000 to $2,500 grants are available to all lodges that reach the GR's member goal for giving to the ENF. So if your lodge has met the 2015-16 per capita goal of $4.65, you have access to the application already. You can visit our reports and standings page to check on your lodge's current per capita. You must apply by May 31st, which I stressed in the previous slide. However, please keep in mind that the funds and the project must be completed by July 31st, 2016. All final report forms must be in by August 31st, 2016. If they're not in by that time, the lodge will be out of compliance and will be locked out of applying for grants until compliance is restored. As you all know, gratitude grants are very flexible. As our way of saying thank you, this is a way for the lodge to meet a community need that they see fit in their community. So, although gratitude grants are flexible, we prefer if lodges not just use them as straight donations, but use them to do a project in the community. So, projects are way better for lodges. I really want to stress that. I know it's easy to do a donation, and that's good for them. They receive a donation, they're able to carry on with their charitable activities as an organization, but it doesn't bring any visibility to the good works that you all have done. You don't really get to hear about, oh, the Elks have done this wonderful project. This is why we stress doing an active project where Elks can get involved. For one, it builds camaraderie between lodge members. It's a great way to get to learn more about your fellow Elks. Secondly, volunteering is good for your health. There are multiple studies that show that volunteers live longer, they enjoy a sense of purpose and fulfillment, it decreases the risk of depression, the list goes on and on. So who wouldn't want to benefit from those? Good is good for you, it's good for the groups you are serving, and it's good for the Elks. So it's a win-win-win. More importantly, for us, it increases visibility in the community. It shows the community who the Elks are, the good things being done in the community, and hopefully encourages others to join the fold. So, if you just merely donated to a food bank, it would be good for them. But actually having a food drive and serving those meals to family in need increases visibility in the community, promotes an atmosphere of camaraderie, and you get health benefits from it. So these are some examples of things you can do on the right side in the green column, and some things that you can't do on the left side in the red column. But we really prefer you to move your project into that next level, which is in the green column. So tips for quick approval. So this year, our goal is to approve 1,400 grants. As of today, we're at 907. So in the next 3 weeks, we have a way to go. So I'm really looking for projects that make my life easier. And these are some of the things that stand out in projects that are approved the first time around that I just want to highlight for lodges. I do read all of the grants, and these are tips for you so that you could get it the first time around. It's coming straight from the horse's mouth. So here we go. So make sure you have a charitable focus. So tell us why your event is charitable. So your lodge's application should focus on charity and service. So promotion of the lodge is great, but it is not the purpose of the grant. Really focus your grant on providing charity, the programmatic aspect of the program versus promotional. Also, focus on how this project will serve the community and meet a local need. Include information about your community. For example, someone could write in their application, our county has the highest rate of drug use in the state. We would like to hold healthy living classes for at-risk youth that talk about drug awareness. So you're talking about an issue in your local community and how you would meet that need. Secondly, make sure you have details, details, details. Tell us enough so that we can explain the project to someone else. Instead of saying community youth project, say a book fair for youth in 1st through 3rd grade. I also want to mention that when you're writing this, you want to make sure that it's not only succinct, but that anyone that picks it up will automatically understand the project and what you intend to do with the grant funds. Sometimes I read in applications, oh, the additional information is in my application from last year. But I'm not reviewing that. I'm reviewing the application for this year. And sometimes a different person may be reviewing the grant and may have no knowledge of what's going on. So please just add that information and let us know what you intend to do with your grant project. Also, don't just mention the target audience. Tell us how you reach that group. Instead of just saying we'll invite at-risk youth, say we'll partner with social services, food pantries, local shelters, and the Boys and Girls Club to reach at-risk youth. A lot of times when I follow up with lodges, it's because of this. They mention the target audience, but they don't tell us how they intend to reach out to that group. So make sure that you add how you will target that group and how you intend to make sure that they can benefit from your program. Also, let's review some of the guidelines. So local means your lodge community. So regional and state projects do not qualify for gratitude grants. If you intend to do a project that focuses on veterans, the projects must focus on one of these 5 areas of increased need. So employment, homelessness and housing, military families, health or educational support. I've had multiple grants come in where people want to apply for memorials for veterans. And while it's a great project, it doesn't fit one of our 5 areas of increased need, and we cannot approve that. So please keep that in mind when you're thinking of a veterans project. As I've mentioned before, grants are online right now, and they must be used by July 31st. They are not intended to reimburse projects that the lodge has already run. So if your project happened 5 months ago and you're applying today, that does not qualify for a gratitude grant. So the budget should show us that you have a plan for the funds and have considered how best to use them. So don't just write supplies. Tell us what the supplies are. So many lodges may do an activity at the Veterans Hospital, at the VA, and they might send supplies such as toiletries, and in their application, they'll list what type of supplies they'll send. So they might send undergarments, lotion, deodorant, any of those. You will want to write that out versus just putting supplies. Also, the budget should match up with the application and reflect that grant funds are needed to hold this event. So focus on fundamental expenses. So if most of the budget is on t-shirts and other promotional items, grant funds may not be needed to hold the project. I will also talk a little bit more about promotional items when we look at a sample grant later in this presentation. So here's a real grant from Ocala, Florida, Lodge number 286. So of course, I scratched out all their personal information. We don't want them to be their identity stolen or any of those great things. So when you're doing this, make sure that you type your name in as you prefer for it to appear. So if you have any misspellings, if your name is in all caps or all lower caps, this is what our database puts on any correspondence, and this is how it will show up on any emails. So please make sure it's exactly how you would like for it to be spelt. Also, for your email, double check to make sure that the email address is correct. A lot of times I send mass emails and they're returned by the postmaster saying that the email doesn't exist. Email is our primary form of contact, so we want to make sure that we're able to communicate with you. Also, make sure to have a secondary contact. So why would you need that? Why two people? So what if one person moves or they change positions or they become ill or get too busy? This happens all the time, and we want to make sure there are two people in the application to ensure that we stay in touch with your lodge. Also, be sure to list the date of the meeting when the grant was discussed. So for Ocala, Florida, they discussed their grant project in the meeting on January 22nd of this year. So let's look at the grant description. So their lodge's project focuses on youth educational programs and is a community educational event. And their target audience is poor youth. So the first question is describe your lodge's charitable project and how it will serve the community. So the members of the lodge told us that they're going to purchase and distribute school supplies and personal items to 300 of the neediest and chronically absent students in the Marion County elementary schools. So they told us what the lodge intends to do with the funds, and they tell us the target group. And our second question, it asks, tell us about your community. Why is this an important community need? So the lodge notes that Marion County is a low-wage and blue-collar county. They want to help give better education to children in need. So by doing this project, this will give students an incentive to stay in school. In the third section, is there an opportunity for Elks to get involved in this project? Please tell us how Elks will participate. When you're doing your application, describe how the lodge will be active in this project. So they tell us yes, that the lodge will be active and they will be purchasing and distributing materials to elementary schools in Marion County. They also tell us how they intend to reach out to that target population. So they've met with the teachers and social workers to help determine students in need that would best benefit from this project. The last question is, what does the lodge expect to accomplish with this project, and how will the lodge measure its success? So they intend to reduce the percentage of students that miss more than 10%, that miss more than 10% or more days in school. And they plan to measure their success by increase of attendance and increase in school success, which can be measured by their school grades. So I think this was great that they had some concrete examples of how they would measure success versus writing smiles on faces or thank you cards. There are different ways to measure success. It could be by the number of people that attended an event, how many people received services. If you did a backpack program, for example, you can measure success by saying 35 children were served from this project. Just concrete ways of measuring success. Also, I highlighted in red that the anticipated date of the project completion, the last day would be July 31st, 2016. So this lodge has they intend to finish their project on July 30th, 2016, which falls into that, within that deadline. So make sure that you know that all projects must be completed by July 31st, 2016. So let's look at the budget. We added some additional information in the budget section about promotional materials because we want lodges to focus not just on promotional items, but the programmatic aspects of a project, and that we're actually targeting and giving programs to people in need. So while free t-shirts are great, everyone loves free t-shirts, we want to make sure that those in need are receiving services that they truly need. So with that being said, only 10% of your lodge's grant budget can be allocated to things such as administration, promotion, or publicity. So some of those things might include advertisements in the newspaper, radio, t-shirts, or other non-essential merchandise. So in this budget, Ocala Lodge did a very good job of breaking down what they intend to purchase. So each student will receive a personal responsibility box with school supply items such as folders, pencils, pens, markers, tissues, flash drives, and they've given an estimated cost of what estimated cost in the right-hand column. So their total grant request was for $2,000, and the total cost of the event is the same. Also, please keep in mind that before application can be approved, additional information needs to be added to the budget narrative. And Ocala did a great job in explaining what the supplies are needed for and how that will support their project. So of course, their target audience is 300 students that are chronically absent in Marion County. So they will receive a personal responsibility box to keep at home, and this would be used as a incentive to get students to come to school. And when they do come to school, they receive a new pencil or ruler, materials that they can use at home to do their homework. Um, and by providing this additional information, we can get a sense of why the lodge would need these supplies. Also, I want to highlight that in the budget, this is what your screen will look like when you're applying. So as I said before, you want to itemize your expected expenses. So in this example, they have supplies, food, entertainment, transportation. And below that is the total grant request. So if your lodge is eligible for the $2,500, in this section, you will be allowed to apply for more than $2,000. If you are not eligible for the additional $500 bonus, you will only be able to input $2,000. I just wanted to highlight that. Also, the total cost of your event may be more than $2,000, and you can put that amount in that second column. If you're unsure of whether the lodge is eligible for the bonus, you can always visit the SIP participation report. I've provided the link below this slide. And on this page, you can put in your state and click display lodges, and you'll be able to pick your lodge. So for example, Illinois Bloomington Lodge, they are in compliance, so they've turned in all of their final report forms from previous years. And they're also eligible for a gratitude grant. If you have a bold red yes, that means that you're eligible for the $500 bonus, which Bloomington Lodge is eligible for. So you can find that information online if you're unsure. So let's talk a little bit about publicity and social media. So of course you want to spread the word about your project before and after it's completed. So here's some tips on how to do that. So before the event, use your lodge's newsletter, a Facebook page, the Twitter account, or maybe even a community bulletin board or email list to recruit volunteers for your project. Also take photos at the event. When the project is completed, get feedback. Ask volunteers how they think it went. You can talk to the people that are being served, and you can follow up with your project partners. If you get any good quotes, write them down and keep thank you letters. These are great for publicity. After the event, you can use our news release generator to create a more professional sounding news release. All of those resources can be found on our SIM Central page, which the link has been provided in this slide. So at the end of your project, you've completed it, it's been a success, you've gotten the word out about it, and now you're ready to mail in everything to the ENF. So you need to complete a final report form. So we'll take a look at a sample final report form and what's needed to close out a grant. So of course, you put your lodge information, the grant coordinator's information will go here, and And also, just some details about the project, when the project occurred, how many Elks volunteers were involved, the total number of people that were served, and the volunteer hours. In the expenses section, you can just give a brief description um, of what the supplies were used for. So the receipts must be itemized, so you can put the date of the from your receipt, description of what they were used for, the Easter egg hunt, and the total amount, $63. So that would go in those columns below. And also, just give us an idea of the type of publicity that was used. So if you got the word out through a newspaper article um, or a radio advertisement, you would put that information there. On the back side of the sheet, we ask about the project and for you to give description of the project in your own words. Sometimes I read the final report forms and I just copy the exact same thing that they wrote in their application, but we really like to see it in your own words so we can get an idea of what happened with your project. So this also applies to the questions in the planning and activities section. So just explain how the Elks were involved. And also, if the project was a success, if some of the things didn't work out, it's okay. We just want to see if there's any way that we could support you in the future to make it a stronger project. Or we use this information for our Elks in Actions articles. So I really like to get that additional information so that can help me write a good feature story about lodges. And yes, I do actually read the final report forms. The required signatures, make sure that you have the signature of the grant coordinator and the exhausted ruler. If both signatures are not present, then the final report form is considered incomplete, and I can't close the grant out until both signatures are present. So please keep that in mind. Also, when you send in your final report form, you will want to send in receipts. So general store receipts from stores such as Walmart are fine. If you make a donation with the gratitude grant, you can also use the donation confirmation letter from their organization as long as it's on the organization's letterhead and specifies the amount donated. So I highlighted the $10,000 that was donated in this letter because that serves as proof of donation that was actually made. Also, invoices serve as good receipts as well. I also want to stress that no cash can be given out without receipts because we can't track what actually happened with those funds. So please keep that in mind. For every cent spent of those grant funds, we need a receipt to accompany it. There are no exceptions for this, so truly keep that in mind. I also want to note that for lodges that make donations, that if you make a donation to an organization such as a senior center or another nonprofit, you can use a copy of the check as proof of a donation as a receipt to us in the event that the nonprofit doesn't have a letter stating the exact amount that was given. So that qualifies as an acceptable receipt. I also want to note that quick reports, vouchers, or credit card statements are not considered proof of purchase because we can't track what was actually spent. So receipts, donation confirmation letters, invoices, uh, copies of checks that were written to nonprofit organizations all qualify. I also want to note that sometimes lodges send in a copy of a check that's from an individual. So an elk went out and purchased materials and the lodge reimbursed them with a check and used that as proof of donation. We don't know what the money was spent on, so we would actually need the store receipts. So please keep that in mind when you're giving a reimbursement that the original receipts are needed. Oh, let me go back and also mention that we highly encourage you to send copies of receipts and that you keep the original because when you mail them, sometimes they don't make it to our office. So we would like for you to have that copy. So in the event that that happens, that you have those on hand and are easily able to give those to us. Also, when you're sending in your final report form, you may want to send in pictures. I encourage you to take pictures. We love pictures. We love featuring lodges on the website, on the Instagram page, Facebook, Twitter. So we're moving to a stage where we really don't want to take um, uh, pictures by mail. And that's because we have to upload them again. They may not be as clear as they originally were. So if you want to send us pictures, send them to our email at enfprograms@elks.org. On the left side, I also highlighted Tacoma Washington Lodge number 174. They're doing their Thanksgiving project. They gave baskets to the local food pantry. So that's a project to keep in mind. Also want to highlight some lodges that have used their gratitude grants in different ways. So we have Norfolk, Virginia Lodge number 38. They used their gratitude grant to work with the local literacy program called REACH. So they purchased books for kids and they read them aloud to the youth once a week. Once per month, and volunteered at the organization's events. So that's a project, a literacy project is something that you can do. They also sent in a great digital picture that we were able to feature in this webinar. So digital pictures are in. Also, let's look at Summerville, South Carolina Lodge number 2719. They worked with a local women's shelter. The women use bikes as a form of transportation to get to job interviews and to commute to and from work. So the lodge helped build a new rack with new bikes. So they purchased those bikes and the racks. So that's a project you can do as well. I really like this project because they really did their research on a community need and met that need. A lot of times there are projects that are, commonplace, but they saw this specific need with the women's shelter and were able to deliver on that. So if you see something like that in your community and it is a charitable project, feel free to write an application for that. And lastly, let's look at Oak Ridge, Tennessee Lodge number 1684. So they work with the State Veterans Home and Hope House and a few other local assisted living facilities to provide a dinner, which included gift cards, gas cards, and entertainment to homebound, homeless, and veterans in need. So they planned the event, they shopped for the foods, and organized the entire event. So that's something you can also do as well, as long as a project serves veterans in need. In this case, these were homebound, homeless veterans. So keep that in mind when thinking of projects that benefit veterans. So that's the end of this presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to contact our office. Our number is 773-755-4730. We are more than happy to help you and assist you with your project. In the event that you get a follow-up email, it is not a rejection. It's simply to request more information or to work with you to strengthen your project so that it would be approved. We want all lodges to apply for grants, to be active in their community doing charitable projects, and we will help you. So feel free to contact us. Our email address is enfprograms@elks.org. And if you want to send us digital pictures, we highly encourage you to send us digital pictures. You can send them to that address as well. Thank you for listening.